Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Scott Luton, Greg White, and Kevin L. Jackson with you right here on the Supply Chain Buzz on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's show. Kevin, Greg, how are we doing this morning?
Wow, looking good from DC. How you doing down there in Atlanta?
Pretty
Wonderful.
good. It's a little rainy down here, but pleasant. Pleasant.
We're getting
But
Oh, good, good.
the grass is growing. That's the good news when it rains every day. And you know when to set your clock to 2 p.m., although it started pretty early today.
that's right.
yeah, I guess that remnants of a tropical storm came through the DC area. I guess last week, I guess it was, and that was torrential. It was short. It was very short.
Yeah.
Well, there's no shortage, though, of news and stories and developments that
Oh.
we're going to be working through here today.
I love that
Nice
transition.
segue.
Yeah, Scott's getting pretty
All right.
good at this.
My
He's
job's
gonna
done.
need
I'll see y'all
another,
later.
Another 600 episodes or so.
Oh, gosh. We've had plenty of practice for sure. But, hey, the Buzz today, it's important to share with you that the Buzz today, of course, we go live every Monday at 12 noon Eastern time to talk about some of the biggest issues, news stories, you name it, taking place across global supply chain, really global business. And today, our show is powered by our friends over at OMNIA Partners. Greg, they're reshaping the future of purchasing, but as I shared last week, they're already starting to shape the current state of purchasing. Your take on Omnia, our friends at Omnia Partners, Greg?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, Kevin Heath, he shared a lot of leadership at Georgia Pacific before going to Omnia and has brought a lot of vision to that company, not just as a group purchasing organization. And we've talked to Ara Arslanian, who, as I say, was born for this.
Mhm.
I wouldn't want to have to negotiate against that guy. But fortunately, it's not really an against thing. That's the beautiful thing about the culture of this company. They bring all these companies together. They power up their negotiating power, if you will, and help them make better, more sustainable deals with the companies they're dealing with. You know, the other thing that they do is they really are strongly embracing technology because our friends at Verison, which nobody can see, but that's the shirt I'm wearing, are doing some work with them to kind of, improve how companies network with their suppliers and even their customers. So it's a very powerful vision. It's not your grandpa's GPO,
Well,
right?
well said.
Right.
And they're
Yeah.
working with lots of movers and shakers. And speaking of leveraging technology, Kevin, that's table stakes these days, right?
Well, see, one of the things Greg was talking about is companies can't afford to operate independently anymore. You have to, first of all, you're operating in a global environment, whether you target that or not, right? If you're on the internet, you're in a global environment. And you are not only competing with other companies, but you have to partner with other companies. So you have to be in an ecosystem. And you have to operate like a pack, a wolf
Right.
pack.
There you go.
All right. It's a wolf pack ecosystem. And when you have organizations like Omnia Partners, behind you or supporting that wolf pack, hey, you're powerful.
So not only is today's show powered by Omnia Partners, but maybe powered by the NC State Wolfpack. These are my friends
Oh,
there.
looky.
Hey, as a Clemson fan, that's been an incredible rivalry going back. It used to be called the Textile Bowl in football, at least. But I digress.
I don't know
Really,
about
that's
that.
true. All right, so let's do this. Let's say hello to a few folks, and then we're going to talk about three upcoming events, including ones hosted by our friends at Omnia Partners down in Miami. Let's say hello to Kyle Garcia, tuned in, I believe, in the West Coast. I think he's in the Seattle area. Kyle, it's been a long time. Hope this finds you well. Tuned in via LinkedIn. We have Eric Canepa, probably. Tuned in via LinkedIn. Great to have you here. Tell us where you're tuned in from too. Savanish, tuned in via LinkedIn. Great to have you here. All right, Kevin and Greg. We have
Oh,
Kelly
boy.
Warner.
Yeah, the pros are watching. We got to step it up.
Pros are watching. Nice. Of
Hold
course,
on. I'm going to sit up straight in my chair.
you're getting demerits and Kelly.
Yeah.
Host of Dial P and host and founder, managing owner over at Buyers Meeting Point. So, Kelly, hope this finds you well. Tom Holden is back with us via LinkedIn. Hello, Tom. Must be from Texas. We'll see. Tom, tell us where you're dialed in from.
Hey, we say howdy in Kansas, too.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Except in Kansas, it's hattie.
Learn something new every day. So, Peter Bollet, I hope this finds you well. Hey, thanks for your message earlier today. Really sorry about the loss of your friend. Peter had a friend of his lost his battle with cancer, and he shared with us earlier today. So, all thoughts and prayers with that individual's family, and of course with you and all your friends as well. Let's see here. Of course, Clay Phillips and Amanda and Jada and Allie are kind of behind the scenes on the production side. Hello, Clay. Andy is back with us. Andy, you've been popping in these live streams pretty regularly here. Tuned in via LinkedIn. Great to have you. Look forward to your contributions here today. Claudia says, great to see you, Greg. Only Greg,
Hey.
I guess, Claudia.
She doesn't care about the rest of
It's
us.
great to see you.
We're going to have to step up the game there.
Yeah, come on, guys.
We need Claudia needs to recognize us somehow.
It's a homeland thing. You can't get there from here.
Just don't even try. Okay.
Well, Claudia,
It's an Argentina thing.
Yes. Great to see you on Supply Chain Now in Espanol as during your interview the other day. So hope this finds you and your team well.
Yeah.
He's in Argentina. See, I just completed an iFit trip around Argentina. That's a beautiful country.
It is, isn't it? It's vast too. I think people underestimate just how big it is.
It was around Patagonia.
Oh my gosh.
It was just so beautiful.
Beautiful. And probably a good thing that it was just iFit. Especially this time of year because you're so close to Antarctica. Antarctica down there at the bottom of Patagonia. Yeah.
Let's jump on a plane. Let's go. Let's go soon.
Go.
Pratik, hello via LinkedIn. Great to see you back here on the Buzz. Happy birthday, Tom, by the way. Hopefully you enjoyed that.
Nice.
Shakespeare of Supply Chain, Greg and Kevin is back with us. Gregory, great to see you here, tuned in from the Caribbean. Let's see here. Claudia says, co-opetition is how collaboration will be done in the future.
Yeah.
Love that phrase here.
You got that right.
Rumbidzai is back with us via LinkedIn. Great to have you here. Rhonda made it on time today, Greg and Kevin. Welcome.
That's early her time too. So
That's right.
Yeah.
We won't tell the boss what you're doing.
Right. And I got Kyle's city wrong. It's not Seattle, it's Portland. I knew that, Kyle. My apologies.
Well, but we're very familiar with both because it looks a lot like Seattle and Portland outside right now.
Right.
As a good friend of mine said from Portland, if you don't mow your yard in the rain, you won't mow your yard.
Hey, my son lives in Seattle, and it was like 120 some degrees up there. I don't know.
Yeah, they've had an incredible heat wave this summer.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fred is back with us.
the Doc
Greg,
Holiday of supply chain.
he's your Huckleberry. Fred
That's
Tolbert.
right.
I hope this finds you well. Hey, Fred, I'm going to pose this question to you. Our mutual friend, Dr. Troy Montgomery, I spoke with him last week. We're going to feature some UGA students and really some thought leaders. I tell you that they are bright later this week. But I could have sworn I saw you driving down the road the other day in a convertible, speeding around a curve. So, Fred, let us know if you have a convertible and hope this finds you well.
Really?
Yeah, I could have sworn it was Fred Tolbert, but he was not wasting any time on wherever he was headed.
Would you call him out like that, Scott?
Dang, right? Yeah.
Jeez.
I hope the police
This
aren't
is our
listening.
audience. You're supposed to be nice to them.
Of course. Big Show Bob Bova is tuned in with us as well. Ziggy Garcia is with us and many, many others. Great to have everybody here. Big Show teed up here today. Sorry we couldn't get to everybody, but hey, get ready. We got 6 stories we're going to be working our way through, and we'd love to have your POV and take as we navigate through the stories across that are making up global supply chain today. Okay, so Greg and Kevin, I want to hit a couple of quick events, and then we're going to dive into the first story. So want to make sure we invite everybody to join Greg and I in Miami as OMNIA Partners is hosting Connections 2021, right? They do this every year. And Greg, as we shared, I think last week with our audience, it's free to attend for supply chain sourcing and purchasing leaders. You get keynotes, you get expos, you get networking. I bet you get some great food is my hunch, Greg. We'll see.
No doubt.
And a lot more. 400 plus attendees going to be having a great time down in Magic City at the event is what they're projected this year. And we're going to be broadcasting live. In fact, the Buzz on Monday, the 27th, I think is, if that's the right date. It could be the 28th, whatever Monday that is.
I'm checking right now, Scott. You keep going. I'll let you know.
Wonderful. September 27th, we're going to be broadcasting the Buzz live from the event. Excellent. And then we're going to be conducting several interviews of some of the folks down there, some organizational leaders down there. So you can learn more by checking the link that's in the show notes. But join us. You know, Greg, we love when organizations invest in events like this and you know, make it easy to be a part, right?
Well, I mean, we just talked about all the value that they bring as a membership, but this is an opportunity to learn about whether you are a member or not, right? To learn about GPOs and how they can be most effective. And as Kevin wisely said, how to avoid going it alone. I mean, as we've talked to them over the months that we have talked with folks at OMNIA, it really makes me wonder why companies would, unless they're very, very vast, right? The AT&Ts and the like, why would you go it alone? Because this gives you equivalent power of that. It reminds me of, Scott, employee leasing, right? Mm-hmm. Where you pool your employees with a couple hundred or 500,000 other people and get all the benefits of that and cost savings of that. This is very similar in a procurement vein.
Yep. It takes a village, right, Kevin?
Yeah. But the question is, are you going to have some Cuban sandwiches while you're down there?
Darn Skippy. And I know right where.
All right.
We at Blue Ridge, we have a bunch of customers in Miami, so I've been introduced to some very good sandwiches.
Well, looking forward to it. Folks, join us in Miami in September. You can check out more information via the link and get ready for some tasty Cuban sandwiches.
Okay, hey, Scott, have you booked travel for that just yet?
Not yet.
Let's talk about that offline because we may want to go to the City of Fountains before we go to the Magic City.
Let's do it. Maybe we'll get a tour of the port center too. But nevertheless, join us in Miami in September. Okay, moving right along, Kevin and I are going to be hosting our friends from TCU and Esker on July 27th, which is, next week, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah. How digital transformation not just accelerates your supply chain, Kevin, but strengthens it, right?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. You know, Esker and their cloud platform really helps their clients just get the most out of their ecosystem by accelerating communications and being able to deliver visibility, both pre-sale and post-sale. So this is an important webinar. You'll learn a lot. And TCU really has verified the value of their model. So this is good.
Love it. Join us July 27th for what will be a fascinating discussion. I'll be taking my 17 pages of notes from this panel for sure. And then finally, really excited about this mini master class. Talk about home run panels. Maria, Crystal, Peter, Rodney, Mark, all teaming up to offer some really free and practical, powerful advice for supercharging your career journey, finding a job, advancing and promoting through your job, making an impact. Join us July 29th at 4 p.m. for that mini master class, and really appreciate Peter and the whole panel here for taking time out of their busy day to help folks. Okay, so Kevin and Greg, I wish I could. I wish Fred had shot me this in a different place. So Fred had responded to my convertible question, and he sent me a great picture that I can't share here just yet. But it's like a scene. Y'all remember the end of the Animal House movie? John Belushi drives off with his date in a convertible near the end of the movie.
69 Lincoln Continental convertible. That's right. Yeah.
So that's what he shared. So he's confirming maybe he's got a convertible. Okay, folks, we got to get down to the news of the day, though. Are y'all ready to go?
Yes.
Let's do this.
All right, let's do this. All right, so I want to talk in this first article. I want to talk about this really interesting article in Supply Chain Dive where Greg, we're revisiting some of the fraud and counterfeit issues that we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Especially and unfortunately in PPE, personal protective equipment. So this article quotes a legal counsel over at 3M, of course, a major player, who stated, quote, "The pandemic has been a major driver of fraudulent activity," end quote. Homeland Security, to address this, launched Operation Stolen Promise in April 2020 to battle fraud and related crimes. So here's a few numbers that will add some context to just how widespread of a challenge we've got here with fraud and counterfeit. So over 2,200 COVID-19 related seizures. That could be pharmaceuticals, that might be masks, other things. Over 300 arrests, and get this, 54.3 million illicit proceeds, revenues seized. So 3M, this is another interesting factoid. So 3M set up an anti-fraud hotline in March 2020. Now you never know with these sometimes these big corporate initiatives, they kind of do it for kind of
Optics.
Optics, right. Great. Thank you, Greg. That's exactly what I was looking for. But over 14,000 calls went into, globally hit that anti-fraud hotline. They have now, for their part, especially when you think of masks, 3M has quadrupled N95 respirators production. They're making almost 100 million per month now.
Wow.
But they're still seeing the major increases in counterfeit 3M, in particular PPE, right? Because that brand is a trusted brand. You put that brand on things, and some folks won't, ask the extra questions. So unfortunately, that quote that's often cited, "Don't let any crisis go to waste." There's different versions of that quote, but unfortunately, the criminals are following that same advice. So, Kevin, starting with you, your take here on what we're seeing in fraud and counterfeit.
Well, the thing about fraud and counterfeit is that they're getting a lot better, right? Because the technology, is rapidly improving for the good guys, but it also improves on the bad side as well. Unfortunately, the bad side can typically move a lot faster. So you have this constant arms race. And in the end, it all boils down to data and trustworthy data, understanding. The government has this big know your customer laws and requirements where you have to verify information. And companies are getting, frauded because it's very difficult sometimes to get the information and verify information. I know my company, we actually were a victim of fraud. It wasn't in PPE, but it was in laptops and tablets, where we got a purchase order that we thought came from the government, and it looked just like a government purchase order. It had all the correct information. The telephone, everything looked correct. We went on the web to try to verify, and in the end, it was fraud. It was fraudulent. It's hard. It's really hard.
Agreed, especially founders and entrepreneurs are already balancing 20 things, right? And some of these small companies, the startups, are being targeted as well. I was part of an organization that also was impacted with fraud. But Greg, what's your take on this news story where it's everywhere?
Well, sadly, this is a health and life-saving based story, but frankly, this is not news. We've been dealing with the most unscrupulous nation on the face of the planet for decades, China, and all they have to do is if 3M is outsourcing their manufacturing to China, all they have to do is put it in the 3M box and route it through different channels, right? Or, however they manage this. Much like Kevin, I worked for a company back in the 90s, early 90s, just over 2 decades ago, that we made tools in China in the same factory that Craftsman made their tools in, they were substantially the same tools with our name, Crew Line, stamped on them instead of Craftsman. And we would routinely find them, the precisely molded tools, at flea markets and at other stores, to the same, with our name stamped on them, with much, much cheaper metals in them. So, as Kevin said, it is an arms race, because look, these people they know they're going to get caught up on, and they're already planning for their next level of depth of crime, right? I mean, we've seen this. It's a very difficult thing to keep up with. I think some of the technologies that Kevin works with, blockchain in particular, can help with verification of these sorts of things to alleviate some of this.
Right.
And as he said, it does go to the trustworthiness of your vendors.
Yep. Yeah, it goes back also why companies need to be part of that wolf pack we talked about before. Okay, when you start working with other companies, you learn about them, if they're trustworthy, and it gets better and better. It's harder for a counterfeiter or a fraudster to get inside the wolf pack.
Right. That's right. You got to team up, but you got to leverage that technology. In fact, Jenny Froome and I are interviewing Ashish, founder of Banku, tomorrow, which leverages blockchain to really power visibility, and for a variety of reasons. Visibility is so in demand, and that's one of the ways we can put a big spotlight on these the fraud and counterfeit issues we're seeing. Got to battle it with data, and battle it with electronic spotlight, so to speak. Okay, so we got to move right along. Great reporting, as always, by our friends over at Supply Chain Dive. Y'all check out that article there. Next up, Kevin, let's see here. We are talking about how the FCC is making big moves on what it deems to be a national security risk. So tell us more about this.
Well, first, I need to have the back office put some ropes around Greg, because this is going to make him jump out of his chair. But in a unanimous vote on Tuesday, the FCC finalized a program to rip and replace all Chinese telecom equipment from the U.S. networks, because it's all considered a national security risk. Why? Counterfeits, right? And Congress has already, and this is weird, they've already put money into this. They put $1.9 billion to reimburse companies that have bought Huawei or ZTE equipment and deployed it in the networks, because now they basically have to rip out that equipment and replace it with product from other countries. Now, get this, to be eligible for the funds, the U.S. telecom firms, have to serve 10 million or less or fewer customers. Typically, you would see this and it'd be going to the big guys, right?
Right.
But this is going to the small guys, right? I
am going to jump out of my chair. Good. It's about time, don't you think?
These are the rural telecom operators, right? And why them? Because they had less money, so they were buying the cheapest product on the market, which happens to come from China. All right. So these eligible companies can actually get reimbursed for ripping out the Chinese product, and it's high level, right? This is a national security threat.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think we can argue that it's a national security threat, right? And I'm glad to see that finally, Kevin, funds are going to people who really need it. Right?
Yeah, right.
And I wonder then, and I don't know if you have any insight here, Kevin, on how these companies might be able to sustain that. Okay, because they're going to get this money to replace the product from these bad actors, but they're going to continue to have to upgrade and expand their networks and things like that. Is there any provision for that in the future, or is there any way that this equipment is made more economically outside of China?
Well, another tact that the FCC is doing is that they are putting in regulations for securing the supply chain. And our friends over at the Telecommunications Industry Association actually developed a ICT specific standard for global supply chain security. And TNS, here's a shameless plug, has a blockchain enabled capability that digitizes or tokenizes the mobile equipment identifier called the MEID. And we call that the electronic or enhanced MEID that would prevent counterfeits. And it would also monitor software that's associated with these products so that you can know if the software is original software or if it has been modified or changed. And if you're interested in the supply chain security, I'll have the back office put the link in the thread. You can learn more about that.
Count me as interested, Kevin L. Jackson. Seriously, I think we ought to talk about this offline, because this is a problem that we need to solve. Is, Scott, my favorite word, provenance, right? The provenance and the security of these products. This is 2 articles in a row where essentially we are talking about the same thing, and we are hearing about this more and more, which is why I think such a natural link, Kevin, with what you have done for so long, digital transformation and supply chain. I know you didn't see it at first, but it didn't take you long to figure it out, that is an important part of this. And not to digress too far,
right?
I'm seeing a lot of universities tying their supply chain practices into digital transformation practices, and vice versa, right? Because it is such a necessary component of provenance, of security, of chain of custody, of status of the goods. Was it turned upside down? Did it fail to maintain frozen temperature? Things like those that can all be handled and managed with blockchain. So
the good news.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk.
Yes. So we've got the TIA webinar in the comments. Sign up for that webinar. We enjoyed hosting a similar conversation a month or 2 back involving Kevin. TIA is a great group doing a lot of good work, and certainly they're the voice of the what's that
ICT?
industry name? Yeah, ICT. I always forget that acronym. So y'all check that out. And then I want to also share, thank you, Tyrone. Says this course continues to get better. Great to have you here today. And as I mentioned, Clay and the team dropped the link in the comments. Hey, so to wrap this story up, we're talking about the FCC finalizing this rip and replace program via CNBC. And I got to tell you, Kevin and Greg, when I saw this picture, I was like, that's such a pretty view. But there's probably a portion of our global community that may look at that tower and may give it the kind of the side eye based on
ruining that view, right?
Well, that and how 5G, some folks.
Hey, when you're riding across the plains on your horse, you need to be connected to the internet.
That's right. That is right. But
that is true. I think about when I was a kid, when my great uncle had a phone in his car. It was some sort of fancy 2-way thing, but it was a phone. And that was in the 70s. So, it's not like we have not been broadcasting over the Great Plains and our beautiful hills. And, as much as we want to get away from it all, don't we still want to be able to see the supply chain buzz when we're in rural West Virginia?
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, I thought you were going to say something else. One of our favorite phrases around here.
What? Wait, well, you spill it.
You can't outrun radio.
Or,
or whatever the version.
That's right. You can't outrun radio. That's right.
Okay, I want to move right along. We're going to talk next about talk about big time brands. Procter and Gamble is shedding some light on how they're using artificial intelligence to drive improvements. And what's interesting about this story, Kevin, before you elaborate more on it, is they had this, from what I was reading, they had this big master plan ready to go, and then the pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden their historical data lost a ton of its value. They kind of had to rebuild it.
Right.
Tell us more about this.
So, the Procter and Gamble, huge company, right? They have to keep track of so much stuff, right? And they are big on data, because data is used to inform how their production lines work. You can't make too much Clorox. Well, that's not possible during the age of pandemic, right?
Right.
But you need to know what your demand is so that your production lines can match that, or you lose money, right? But when the pandemic hit, the demand for things like toilet paper and hand sanitizer just went through the roof. And there was no historic precedent for this. So before the pandemic, they were looking at the past, what happened in the past. They had all their data. They created all these algorithms based upon that data. And in 2020, they were ready to start using this advanced technology, all right? And then when the pandemic hit, everybody was saying, yeah, we're Procter & Gamble, we're smug. We knew this was coming. We knew it was coming. We have all our data. We have our algorithm. Our artificial intelligence is ready to make this happen. And then it didn't work. Because all the data was in the past, and it really didn't help them. They recovered, but in the end, they determined that it was all about cultural shifts. It was all about the people and understanding what was important to them, right? The algorithms didn't know how important toilet paper was to people. How stupid can an algorithm be? But 80% of the task of understanding how to manage your supply chain is adopting and understanding and recognizing cultural shifts. And only 20% is routed in the data and the analytics and the technology. So it's sort of a different view. Everybody's saying, no, go technology, go data. But you really need to know about the people.
Yeah.
Okay, that's critical. So they really, in order to solve these real world problems, you have to understand culture, society, what's important to them. If you understand that, then you can use data and analytics and technology to be better.
Yeah, effectively. So, Greg, I bet you are chomping at the bit to talk anything AI for sure, but beyond that, what's your take here on the story from Procter & Gamble?
Well, before we talk about AI, and precisely to Kevin's point, and just to tie that into something I've been saying for decades and researching for decades, we are forecasting the wrong thing in supply chain, and that is the fatal flaw in supply chain, and that's why we didn't predict or pick up fast enough on the great toilet paper shortage of 2020. We are predicting items. The data that Kevin is talking about is how much toilet paper has sold in the past. All right, get ready, gang. Past performance is no indication of future value, right?
You see that everywhere, right? But you
right.
don't believe it.
And I have created this term for using historical data to try and predict the future. It's not forecasting, it's postcasting. We're trying to look at the past. We're trying to look at the items that sold and predict the future. What did this item do last year? You know what it did? It did exactly what it's doing right now. Nothing. It sat on the shelf waiting for, as Kevin has talked about, a human being to act on it. So we are forecasting items when we should be forecasting consumers. And that is the critical transformation that needs to occur in supply chain in order for us to be able to do the forward-looking, the real forecasting that Kevin's talking about. So I can go into incredible depth on how to do that. But that is the fatal flaw. And that is the kind of data that, by the way, is available thanks to e-commerce and all of this data that's collected on our phones, on our computers, on our cars,
refrigerators,
and
dishwashers,
everything, right?
Right,
Okay,
right.
yeah. The chip that got put in when I took the shot, all of that. Sorry,
Oh, but,
sorry, I had to say that.
That's good. You always
That's how Bill Gates knows where I am. He keeps finding it. But it is that data that's so valuable, because what we are predicting is what we should be predicting is what we will do next.
right?
Yes.
Right. And that is the only way in which we can truly transform supply chain, is to stop looking to the past for our cues, because, as Kevin said, the history of what Procter & Gamble had is absolutely useless. 100% useless.
No.
We need to be looking at those indicators and
100%.
influencers.
It's not 100% useless. It's 80% useless.
Yeah, that's true.
100%
Okay,
is
80%. 80% useless. Yeah, that's kind of like when my dad says, more than 80% of putts that don't get to the hole don't go in.
I thought we were going to have a moment there and a rough and tumble, but
I mean, I think that's a good point. We have to shift what we're forecasting.
yes,
Right.
agreed.
The way that we've thought of forecasting in the past is we use this historical data as the top of the funnel, and then we try and layer it in with additional data. But I think of it inversely. The historical data does probably provide 20%, and sometimes even more. It's not our initial go-to. If you think about it, it's not the cream on the top of the barrel, it's the sludge at the bottom of the barrel, that if we can't figure out some way to predict what human beings are going to do, we have to resort to looking at what historical data we have in the past on items, right? So
it's that real-time data, right? The real-time data is telling you what the cultural change is happening right now. And that has to be your lead indicator.
yeah.
And then you can moderate that with your historical data.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, let me share a couple of comments here from our friends. Big Show Bob Bova says, culture, creativity, and human intercommunication is critical to evolution. AI is only as good as their programmers. Claudia says, human behavior prediction is the new supply chain challenge. And Rhonda, like that idea, postcasting human behavior. I like that, Rhonda and Greg. Okay, so what we're talking about here, folks, just to kind of close the loop here, we're talking about how P&G is leveraging AI to really do some big things, but differently than they had initially planned, thanks to, of course, the pandemic. So check that out. That is a new source for me, Kevin. I think that is VentureBeat is what VB stands for.
Yeah.
So y'all check out that article as well. All right, Kevin, we ready to move right along?
Absolutely, sir.
All right. So
that clock is running fast. Is that clock running fast today?
Yeah. That was our most violent agreement so far. So
yes, that's right. So
keep that going.
Greg mentioned toilet paper a second ago. I believe that computer chips is the 2021 version of toilet paper. Yes. We're not going to stop talking about it, and for good reason. Because just as important as TP is, computer chips are in everything that Kevin and Greg just mentioned. So I really enjoyed this article. This isn't straight up news. This is one of the brand voices that you can find in Forbes. But a lot of times these articles are really good, like this one. And this is from our friend at SAP, Richard Howells is the author of this article. So check out a couple of these highlights. I like good factoids, and this article had lots of them. So did you know in a typical new car, you can have more than 1,000 computer chips, right? Did you know that in 1990, 37% of all chips were made right here in the U.S.? In 2020, just 12% of the chips are made here. And the major players, as y'all might imagine, you might guess Taiwan, you might guess China, but South Korea is also in that top tier of chip manufacturing. Did you know that normal lead times for chips, due to their complexity, is already 26 weeks? So we're not talking of trying to disrupt 2 or 3 week lead time. They're already, because of all the complexity involved, long. So this article also references Intel. Announced that major $20 billion. Holy cow. That's got to be a typo. Major investment in Arizona. It's probably a $2 billion investment in Arizona. One of the few onshoring initiatives announced here in the last 12 months or so as domestic manufacturing of chips looks to gain some ground. But, Kevin, one of the last times you were with us, well, it was probably about 8 months ago now. Now that I think about it, maybe 6 months ago. You talked about...
God, it hadn't been that long, has it?
Hey, I've 3 kids. My
I've been working up the ladder,
Yes.
Yeah.
But Kevin, one of the great points you made was when it comes to computer chips and the use of chips is all this constant computing that goes on, right? And so the performance of your average computer chip is a little different than it was, maybe 5 or 10 years ago. But what else about this story sticks out in your mind, Kevin?
Well, one of the things that stuck out is the concentration of chip manufacturing in Taiwan, in Korea, and China. I mean, I know manufacturing in China is being concentrated across every industry, but sort of the opposite of that, there is a move afoot to break up a monopoly of chip manufacturing in Taiwan. And I'm on the fence about that, if that's good or is that bad, right? You always want to have, Taiwan has shown that it's a great center of manufacturing these chips, all right? And the quality is great. And they are a friend to the U.S.
Yeah, and a government we can trust, like South Korea.
Right, and governments that we can trust. So why would someone want to break up that center of excellence? Nobody likes monopolies, but sometimes monopolies are good. And when we have monopolies on our electricity, right? And why? So that everyone can get equal quality in their electricity. Otherwise, it would be based upon what you can pay. Same thing with water. We have monopoly organizations that run water because it's a commodity.
Right.
But semiconductor chips are a commodity, if you like it or not. All right. They go into everything.
Right.
Your refrigerator, your stove, your car, your watch, your computer, right?
Yeah.
So maybe just like the internet is a commodity, maybe the manufacturing provisioning of these chips should be seen as a commodity.
Yep.
It's better for everyone to have quality as opposed to having this quality being distributed based upon wealth.
Yep. I'm going to come to you next, Greg, but really quick, I want to clarify. I got a note from the team. It is indeed a $20 billion investment in Arizona that Intel is making. And it's 2 factories. And, of course, they're probably rolling up all the jobs and you name it. But talk about a massive commitment. We'll see how that plays out. All right, so, Greg.
Wow.
Yeah, no kidding. That blows me away. I'd like to see the math behind that. But regardless, I think it's a great thing. It's certainly a great thing for Rhonda and all of our friends out in Arizona. Probably some good high-paying jobs. But, Greg, what's your take on monopoly or chips or you name it?
All of it. So I think I like that perspective, Kevin, that we need to think of this like a utility, like a semi-governmental organization, right? Because in all of those situations that you described, water and power and all of that, those are heavily regulated industries by the governments, either state or federal governments, that assure that monopoly does not become all powerful, but instead becomes all serving. And I agree that is something that would be very, very useful for this. At the same time, I don't understand, frankly, the breakup of the monopoly in Taiwan. That may be an internal Taiwan thing where they want to spread the wealth to other companies in Taiwan, which is fine with me. I'm not sure I like the idea of getting much outside of Taiwan and South Korea, because with China's One Belt, One Road initiative, they are basically creating incursion into every other Southeast Asian country, where many people are going for respite from the despots of China to try and manufacture other goods. They're getting into Vietnam, where people are moving production. They're getting into Malaysia and even Singapore, some other areas where people are moving funds or moving production of goods. And it's enough already that China is some enormous percentage of all of the mined rare earth minerals that go into semiconductors,
Right.
right? And for them to control both the elements of production and the means of production, boy, that sounds really dangerous, doesn't it? So
Yes.
I think those are all things we have to think about as we do this. And and you guys know, I hate it when the government gets involved in certain things, but where infrastructure is involved, and I think we'd have to argue that at this stage of our society, semiconductors are infrastructure, as evidenced by the tens or hundreds of thousands of vehicles sitting in lots right now that can't start because they don't have their final semiconductor. I think we'd have to argue that semiconductors are as close to a utility or commodity, as Kevin talked about, as power or water.
It's an excellent point. It's all. I would throw in there internet connectivity, right?
Internet.
The gap.
That's a critical infrastructure. We've accepted that the internet is a critical infrastructure, and what powers the internet? The
semiconductors.
We'll save it for another show. But I think what you both have touched on, and Greg, you touched on there, is a geopolitical hot football that with Taiwan and China's massive investment in its own defense arms, Army, Navy, Air Force,
right,
and some of its very stated public communications in terms of its goals. There's a lot of moving pieces here, but regardless, I think some of the good news are some of the massive investments. Of course, you don't play catch up overnight in this kind of game, right? But you got to start somewhere, and so these massive investments that do create some new sources, new suppliers, or new options there are going to be good things in the longer term picture. Now, with all that said, any smart analyst that I've been reading, there's no even catch up this year. It's all in 2022 before supply even comes close to catching up to demand. And we'll keep our finger to see if that keeps getting moved out. Keep our finger on the ball there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to share a couple of things here from the audience. Peter, going back a little ways, says deciphering the sludge. Interesting new concept. Not heard that one before. Guess it equates to scraping the bottom of the barrel.
That's right. Historical item demand is the bottom of the barrel.
Right.
In terms of demand indicators. Absolutely.
Arvan, great to have you here today. Talks about how the pandemic world is, you got to have your gadgets, right? Everyone's working from home, learning from home, or just the technology continues to permeate every aspect of our lives, right? As evidenced with some of the appliances we talked about. And of course, it talks about how demand is greater than supply. Rhonda mentions jobs for sure. That's great, Rhonda. Claudia, what about opportunities? Africa, for example. Claudia, that's excellent point.
So that is interesting. And of course, China has also made huge incursions in that. Kim Winter, who's also in the stream, showed where China's banks, which are of course governmentally run, are investing all over the world, and particularly in Africa. And of course, their One Belt, One Road initiative includes Africa. So certainly anything we can do to help support those countries is hugely helpful. And look, this is a whole new kind of Cold War. It is a financial and infrastructure Cold War, but have no doubt it is a war. And if we don't push back, they will. As I think I quoted, was it Ben Franklin? There are two ways to subdue and overcome a country. One is by the sword, and the other is by debt. So what China is doing is indebting hundreds of companies around the world to their banks, and they'll reap the benefits not only in interest, but also in control over those countries and companies and governments.
Yeah.
So Kevin, I'll give you the last thought there, and we're going to move on.
No, I think, as you say, this is an economic war, economic battle, and you have to engage or perish.
Yeah.
So
spoken by right Navy commander and NASA NSA expert. So
that's right. And Kevin can't tell us anything else because
he'd have to kill us all.
Right. So, all right. I want to share this. So Gregory is chiming in. The Shakespeare supply chain here says, with respects to AI and human behavioral science, it's a huge study. Still, it has a long way to fully understand the constructs of the way it can be predictable. Human nature makes shifts and impacts every facet of industry: science, law, economy, geography, politics, and the list goes on. So we haven't arrived. You're right. Great point there, Gregory. We made some big strides, but we have not arrived. And Kim, by the way, says, war for sure. You got to be in it to win.
Yeah.
All right, but going back to Africa. So stay tuned as our Supply Chain Leadership Across Africa series continues. Looking forward to our interview with Banku that will be released in the coming weeks. Jenny Froome and the team, I think, Greg, will be part of their upcoming August event during, I think, day 2 of it. But there's so much great news and innovation and investment opportunities playing out across Africa. And Kevin, I think one of your last appearances here, we talked about the trade zone. Trade deals.
Free trade zone. Yeah, continental free trade zone. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so let's keep driving. Gosh, folks, we got a long way to go. Yeah.
Jeez.
All right, so we were talking there about the semiconductor struggles via Forbes. Kevin, talk to us about Union Pacific, and they're calling a temporary timeout here on stuff moving from the West Coast ports to Chicago. Tell us more.
So earlier this year, we had that reporter on the scene down in LA, seeing all the lineup of the container ships waiting to get into port. Okay. Now it's happening on both sides. Okay. And how does stuff get from the interior to the ports, or from the ports to the interior? It's through rail. Okay. And Union Pacific is one of the major arteries in the United States. So they live in this same ecosystem, and they see what's happening on the ports. And when the bag is full, you can't put more stuff into it. So the ports are full. So the trains are stopping, right? They're suspending eastbound service from the West Coast port terminals to the global intermodal facility in Chicago. Okay, so they can ease the traffic congestion at the inland terminals. Right. So all the coasts are full. So ships are going down the St. Lawrence Seaway to try to get to the inland terminals. They're full. Okay, so we're just stuck. So the suspension is aimed to help ocean carriers reduce their backlogs. Okay, so they was planned to start the suspension of rail service on yesterday for about 7 days. All right. They believe it's going to help the global backlog of containers. Now, this announcement only applies to Union Pacific served terminals in Los Angeles, Long Beach, Oakland, and Tacoma, Washington. But other rail hubs, the logistics or freight forwarding organizations, this hurts them.
So, Greg,
so you're saying we got 10 pounds of ships in a 5-pound bag, right?
About this size of it. Yes.
Well, I appreciate the explanation, because honestly, the article was not completely clear of how this would alleviate the problem, but the clarification around the St. Lawrence Freeway and how inland water ports, not just inland ports, Scott, which is a whole different term for some of us in supply chain, those inland seaports, or whatever you want to call them, on the Great Lakes, of course they're jammed up. So I think that's a great move by UP. Probably a little bit of self-preservation there, because you can bet that it's impacting their their efficiency of their rail. But the issue remains that and I think they noted also in the article, Kevin, that it's not domestic.
No.
Right? They're not ceasing to move domestic, as they called it 53-foot equivalents, which are real trailers. Those are 53-foot trailers. It's the 20 and 40-foot PE. Is that right? PEU. Anyway, the sea containers that they are ceasing to move for 7 days. So it won't stop ground transportation. That's good. It will alleviate this jam of product coming from both land and sea to ports like Chicago. So that should help loosen things up, but there will be a requisite impact on availability of goods, and a 7-day increase in lead time on some of those products that would otherwise move from Long Beach, LA, and so forth to Chicago, which is a common point for distribution to the middle and eastern part of the country. So we'll have some of that impact, but I kind of like this move. I mean, I think it's time somebody did something to alleviate this port congestion, rather than just observe it. And isn't it interesting to watch how port congestion has worked its way all the way around the country, right? From the West Coast to the southern ports, to the East Coast ports, up the East Coast, and now even into the Great Lakes. That's fascinating to see how much flow we have, that we are now jamming ports all over the country.
It's unbelievable.
But you think about the ports, though. So what about the warehouses between the ports and the railheads?
Right.
So now this cargo can't go into the warehouses anymore, and they're probably being held on the containers on the tracks at the railheads.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a mess. It is a mess. But Greg, I like your point. It's about time. It's good to see people taking action rather than to just observe the mess that it is. It kind of reminds me of that quote. I don't know who said it, but everyone complains about the weather, but no one does anything about it.
Right. Right.
All right. So let's. We were just talking about Union Pacific's move there. I want to cover one final story. We might go over by a couple minutes here, and that's okay. Important final story. The Lodestar reports truck drivers are opting out of driving, making their money elsewhere, where they can find more respect and time. In some cases, it's not even about the money. So the article, drivers are pointing to a variety of factors other than the money: getting treated very poorly, crazy hours.
Oh, well paraphrased. They're getting treated like ships.
I'm reading our show notes, and I said, "Okay, what is he going to do?"
Yeah, that was very good editing.
Well, editing on the fly, great job,
the article did use some other language, but crazy hours, schedules, of course, due to some of the current shipping challenges that we just kind of walked through, and there's always challenges, right? It's just lately in the last 18 months they've become far different, and this is a shame, but this is what we've heard from a variety of drivers and practitioners. Some of these drivers, they're refused basic needs at sites, including bathroom access. Goodness gracious.
What sites are those? Is that when they're dropping their trailer or unloading their trailer?
Or perhaps waiting?
I've heard that the truckers would get to a terminal and the line would be so long that they would have to wait for 2 to 3 days before they can even get into the terminal. And there's just no facilities built for waiting trucks.
Yes.
Huh.
So
who's
that's
responsible
what we're hearing.
for that? Who's responsible for that anyway?
We need to pick up the phone and reach out. But what we're doing,
we need Frank Hurst.
Right.
That's what we need to do. We need to talk to Frank Hurst about that from Roadrunner.
We've got a conversation teed up with Frank, but more importantly, and something that I'm really excited about, is through our friend Ward Richmond, we're going to tee up some episodes with truck drivers, and we're going to hear right from what they're experiencing and share that with all of y'all, because there's just there needs to be some more professional courtesy, some standards, some decency in across global supply chain here. But also, safe places to park becoming a bigger problem, not only for all the normal reasons, but also more and more theft and criminal activity. They're after their loads, and it's not just a problem here in the U.S., but especially in Europe. In fact, the United Kingdom alone may have 100,000 shortfall of truck drivers. So excellent article there at the Lodestar, another great place for great news, great reporting, great research. So y'all check that out.
Wow. Well, if any truck driver has ever driven on the M25 in the UK, I can understand why they don't want that job. That is that's like a 200-mile parking lot around London. I mean, that's tough driving. And I can't imagine getting caught between exits there, installed in traffic.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we need to build these semis more like RVs with facilities inside them.
Definitely.
I wonder.
Bob Bova says so many Americans are quitting their jobs as they realize they are respected in other professions, and so they can live their lives, not live to work. Excellent point there. And Rhonda, I agree with you. I'm disappointed, as she says, in some people's lack of kindness, lack of gratitude. It's interesting. We've seen a ton of empathy, right, throughout the pandemic, but still, in some cases, in some pockets of industry, just really poor levels of courtesy and professionalism and just sheer humanity still exist, and we still have a lot of work to do there. But
Kevin, imagine this, though. I mean, let's hopefully we can find a bright spot or give some credit here. But imagine if trucks have to wait for 2 or 3 days, how far outside of a yard they might be in an industrial area where most of the people go home and go to bed after 5 o'clock.
Right.
It's possible that there aren't temporary facilities built, and they're not even on the lot that is the responsibility of where they're trying to deliver.
Right.
I mean, I wonder whose responsibility that really is then. If that kind of congestion is occurring, maybe that's another place where, state and local governments or often these are industrial complexes, the common area of the industrial complex becomes an area where they provide those kind of facilities. I'm thinking of a particular one not far from my house and favorite sports bar that could probably use such a thing. I may have to stop down there and see what's going on there every day. Not the sports bar,
right?
the industrial facility.
Well, if I'm
starting to question your priorities there, Greg.
Right? Yeah. But I think this has become an issue that is probably hard for everyone to deal with if you think about it.
So Kim says Truckers Rule was in it for 12 years. I'd love to hear some stories. That Kim's got.
Really?
But
and is he an Aussie or is he a Kiwi? If he drove across Australia in a semi,
yes,
that's like off-roading with 80,000 pounds in tow.
But one last thought here. I kind of stealing one of Greg's phrases about acknowledging reality but not being bound to it. If I'm leading a company, and we've got all these here in the Atlanta area, we've got tons of these massive distribution facilities and fulfillment centers that have dozens and dozens of trucks, being processed at any given time. If I'm leading one of those sites, right, if I'm a president or CEO or someone that can make money and make decisions and spend money, I think building some kind of nice facilities that are upkept, bathrooms, even showers, some just, spend some money, build a small facility, have that be a competitive advantage, and have the culture of your organization and how you treat all professionals, especially these hardworking drivers that are mistreated by many others. Have that be an important part of your differentiation in terms of your culture.
Well, maybe some of these truck stop companies could expand their services
into these industrial complexes. That is a brilliant idea, Kevin.
I love
that idea. I think also maybe holding yards where you can dump the trailer and
pick up another load
and go back to a Flying J or a Pilot or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or, we've talked about the coming automation or autonomous trucking, right? And these drivers basically become like harbor pilots for a city, or maybe even just
Yeah.
a region of a city. They can take the trailer to near where it needs to be. It's not going to be less secure than it is right now. Leave it, go home, come back in the morning, and continue the task, or
Yeah.
have some sort of signaling mechanism that identifies that you're on deck, right?
Right.
So I was doing some other research, and they were talking about how these autonomous trucks are going to go from metropolitan region. So humans will no longer be doing those long hauls, but they will all work within the metropolitan region, like you're saying. But
Yeah.
the other part of that is the lower number of trucking jobs that will be available. So everything in the world has a double edge, right?
Definitely.
I think though, with the way that the generations are coming in, that
Mm-hmm.
don't want to, who said it here, don't want to live to work, they want to work
Right.
to live.
Yeah.
I think you would find a lot. First of all, there aren't enough truckers for the jobs that are available today. I can tell you, we've talked to a number of companies that do recruiting or are trucking companies.
Mm-hmm.
The trucking shortage the driver shortage is substantial, and it's getting worse. And this ain't helping. By the way, these kind of conditions aren't helping. But imagine a scenario where they are like harbor pilots, where they go home every night. I think more people would get into that job if they could do it 8 to 5, or at least didn't have to do it for 3 or 5 or 7 or 10 days on the road at a time. I think that we might find some market equilibrium there because if we get things working efficiently, imagine, in where you are, Kevin, you go out to 495, you pick up a truck that has been autonomously pulled over to the side of the road, you get in it, you drive it to the lot, you get a ride out like a harbor pilot does in a port. You go pick up another truck, you drive it to where it's going to wait, and et cetera, and you just do that for the day, and then you're done.
Then you're done, yeah.
Right?
So maybe it's a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah, who knows? I think we'll find it, though, but we're thinking about the right things, right? And that's what's good for the people, what's good for the companies, some potentially commercial opportunities, like Kevin, I love that. Mini truck stops. They're like truck stop convenience stores, right? In some of these closer in areas.
But what's interesting here, the article spoke to this, and I just Googled it really quick because that the average age of your truck drivers, and according to NPR, it's about 10 years older than the average age across other comparable industries. And I believe, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe it continues to get a little bit older because we're struggling to get new folks into the industry.
Yes. Millennials and Gen Zs are staying away in droves.
Right. And that's also impacting, as Lodestar spoke to, the nature of the profession, because as you have older drivers, they have more, they're not driving and chasing the money, so to speak. So what they want, the types of loads and the types of work they want to drive and take on is different. And some of those things you're talking to, Greg, that's unappealing. These older, seasoned workers or drivers, rather, they're just not going to opt in for that stuff. So, but I agree with what both of you are sharing. We're going to hit a breaking point, and it's going to, between technology and innovation and the nature of the profession, you name it, it's going to be addressed. And hopefully there's more winners than losers, but it's a critical, as we all know, a critical aspect of the backbone of global supply chain. And
it ain't rocket science, Scott, but we've got a rocket scientist right here who can help.
On that,
right?
So speaking on that note, as we start to wrap here, a long extra bonus version of the supply chain buzz.
Yeah.
We're in overtime.
We are in overtime. I want to share
Next
this.
score wins.
So Kevin had a great time over the weekend. So if a couple months back, We were honored to have the legendary Special Ed join us here on the Supply Chain Buzz, who's doing some cool things to protect musicians and their IP in the industry. But Kevin, you were at a concert of sorts over the weekend, right?
Yeah, I was with the alumni of hip hop in Richmond, about 2 hours from where I am, as a special guest of Special Ed, and that was wonderful. I was there with they had Chubb Rock and Moni Love and Dana Dane, Cinderfellas fame, right?
Yeah.
And I was an official part of the entourage. I tell you,
Man. That is
I
awesome.
was rocking. I just threw my rocket scientist credentials to the side, man. I was hip hop royalty, man.
I love
That's
that.
awesome, man.
Rocking the old school. I'm not gonna say how old, but
Not that old.
Well, love seeing that, and really enjoy, what Special Ed was doing, what he shared with us, and then of course I saw a couple of clips. I didn't see any of the songs themselves. I'll maybe look for that post show, Kevin. But looks like clearly y'all had a great time, and it's great to see. All right.
I'm the magnificent. I got it made. Okay.
I gotta share a couple of final comments, and then we're gonna wrap. Antonio says, going back to the truck driver issue, this is not only an issue with the drivers, but also people at distribution centers and warehouses that unload them. Organizations do not treat them well. Company culture needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Bova says there is a basic contraindication that may be in.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Of next hour delivery and moving important freight effectively. As we relax from same day, the dynamic will reset to a more natural balance. It's kind of what folks are alluding to here. Kim says, hey, open up immigration. Millions of folks, men and women, want those jobs.
I don't know where that applies. You'd be hard pressed to have more open immigration than we do.
And Rhonda says,
I mean, maybe he's talking about the UK. I don't know. Do you think? I don't know what their immigration looks like right
that's
now.
a good point. That's a good
I
point.
wonder if anybody, with the whole EU situation, if people are going there still.
Mm.
And then finally, I think Rhonda was pointing out, I think she's speaking to the average age of truck drivers, around 55-ish, which, again, is 10 years older than a lot of comparable industries. Finally,
Yeah.
Antonio
And as you
says,
said, getting older, right?
Yeah,
Scott,
I believe so. I don't have
I think I would, based on what I've heard about incoming generations, I could completely see that.
Yeah. Antonio says we also need to increase rail capacity instead of just self-driving trucks. It is a better way to move products long haul with lower emissions and less congestion on our highways.
So I did a supply chain commentary on that a week or two ago about how the government is going to try to eminent domain the railways, because currently Union Pacific, for instance, owns their rails. So, and I can't even remember whoever else, Santa Fe or whatever they're called these days, BNSF owns their rails.
Really?
Yeah. And they either don't share or they charge to share or whatever. So the Biden administration is looking at universalizing that.
Wow.
Well, there's no shortage of things to chat about on today's Supply Chain Buzz. We've gone over a whopping 15 minutes, but hey, we're with good friends and tons of intriguing topics, and really enjoy.
And we're having fun. That's what's important.
That's the important thing. That's right.
But huge thanks to Kevin L. Jackson. Of course, he leads our Digital Transformers series right here on Supply Chain Now, and you're going to be able to find that on its own RSS feed starting really soon. Amanda might get
Woohoo! Digital Transformers!
That's right. He's not excited.
I remember watching that when I got home from school when I was a kid.
So we also should tip of the hat to our friends and sponsors at TNS who help make that possible. So really appreciate what you are doing there, Kevin. Okay. And of course, big thanks to Greg. You can find Greg and I every Monday at 12 noon Eastern time on the Supply Chain Buzz, where we feature the movers and shakers of industry, just like Kevin, right here every week. On behalf of our entire team here, so Kevin, Greg, thank you both.
No,
really
thank
appreciate
you.
it. Enjoyed
My pleasure. Yeah.
We'll see you soon. Stay tuned for tomorrow. Dial P for procurement. We'll kick off at 12 noon Eastern time with the one and only Kelly Barners to join us for that. But hey, in the meantime, really important. Hey, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time right here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
All right, see you, everybody.
Take care.